Hello, everybody. What's up? Welcome to Discovering Nicole. That would be me, the triple double G Nicole. We are live at 6 o'clock today because we have a special guest speaker coming on to share their story, and that would be Cassie from Wildflower Tea. So, come on in and hang out for a while with us. If you guys don't mind, help me by sharing the video, liking the video, and inviting your friends. Sharing the video, liking the video, and inviting your friends. And I'm going to do the same thing real fast while we're chit chatting over on Facebook. So, for those of you guys that are new to my YouTube channel, I like to make content about addiction and recovery. And sometimes I get tired of talking about myself. So then I like to have people come on and tell their stories. So that's what we're doing tonight. Let me draw this blind really fast so that way it doesn't blind you guys. So that's what we're doing tonight. Cassie's going to come tell her story tonight, so that way I don't have to talk about myself. No, but really, I like to interview people. And for those of you guys that are just coming around and hanging out with us, I have 150 interviews on this channel. So if you guys like hearing people's stories of recovery, go to my playlist. It's literally labeled interviews, and you'll find over 150 interviews of people that have came on and shared their stories of addiction and recovery. We support all pathways to recovery here. So it doesn't matter if you're abstinent. It doesn't matter if you're on MAT. It doesn't matter if you are a person who uses THC or CBD or kratom. It doesn't matter. Like, as long as you're like improving your life and you're trying to be a better person than the way you were when you were in active addiction, then we support you. What we don't support is like, staying in your own old behavior and being treating people disrespectfully and being nasty to people. And we try to support people where they're at. If you're still actively using drugs, we're not going to shame you or ask you to leave. You can hang out with us, of course. We just ask that if you're still getting high, that you don't try to, give people drugs in the chat or try to tempt people into coming over there and doing things that they're not supposed to be doing. You know what I'm saying? But if you're getting fucked up and you're trying to change your life and you want to start hanging out with people who have already changed their lives, then you're more than welcome to hang out with us here on my channel. Okay. Sorry about that. I was just trying to share this everywhere that I thought I needed to share it. Okay. I think I did that. I did good. Okay. Hey guys. Hey Amy. Hey John. What's up? Hey Allie. So I think Cassie was just getting her kids all situated. So as soon as she gets that done, we'll be going and we'll talk. We'll hear her story. Look at my pretty necklace, y'all. I'm wearing it today, my opal necklace. I'm so happy. So I decided to layer it today with this little puff heart that I have. Now, when my husband used to work for a jewelry store. They actually gave these little puff hearts away for free. And this is solid silver. It's like pretty heavy. And then I have this little wishbone with diamonds in it. And I just put it on there too. Because I figured I could like layer it. And then my ears are almost healed from the piercings. So I'm going to be able to wear different earrings soon in my ears. And I'm really excited. And then I've got my Samsung watch on. And then my opal, and then my wedding ring. So that's our jewelry for today. And then I have no makeup on and just a little bit of lip gloss and my favorite lip gloss. So that's all. I've been kind of hanging out and laying low the last couple days because what will happen is I'll go on like I'll go on a spree where I go live like every single day. And my husband even asked me about it. He goes, "You haven't gone on your live stream?" And I'm like, it's only been one day. But it's because I get so used to going on it all the time that when I don't, it kind of feels like something's missing. You know what I'm saying? But I was actually talking to one of my friends, y'all, on Facebook. I'm not going to say who it was, but we were talking about I made a video on I made a post on Facebook that was saying since YouTube demonetized me, I started an OnlyFans. And I left a link to my Patreon in the comment section of this post, right? And all these people were freaking out, like thinking that I had really done it. Some people were being like really kind of upset with me for doing it. And then some people were laughing because they could get the joke, you know? And one of my friends messaged me and he was like, hey, did YouTube really demonetize you? And I was like, yeah. And they did the same thing to him. And I thought, wow. So what I think happened is after they monetized shorts, they went through and just did a sweep of everybody's channels. So it wasn't just me. A lot of people were trying to think it was some conspiracy, like, you know, it's no conspiracy. Like a lot of people got hit just like I did. And it was because they were like doing a sweep and going through everybody's channels after they monetized shorts. So I will reapply for it in April, y'all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have you guys help me go through all my content and make sure that I take down any videos that are like reposts. You know, I'm going to go through first and I'm going to go through and look through all of it, take all the ones down. And then if you guys see any that I don't see, let me know. Okay. But anyway, let me see if I don't see, yeah, she's not here yet. Okay. I'm excited to hear Cassie's story though. I don't really know her whole story. I don't know what drugs that she was on. So I'm really excited about it. I have to show you guys this new lady I found on Etsy who does rings, y'all. And y'all are gonna freak out when y'all see this lady's oh, let me see. Let me show y'all what I'm talking about. Hey, what's up? What's up, Patricia? I think it is too a bunch of bull. I could fight people. I could fight YouTube about that, but we're not going to do that. I want to show you guys these. Y'all know I'm obsessed with opals. Anybody that's new here, I have an obsession with silver jewelry, specifically opals, and I have just been ordering my way through opal jewelry, having the best time of my life. Okay. But I found this new girl who does opal jewelry, and I want to show you guys her. Oh, that's really pretty. Her work, because it's really pretty. And if you're somebody who likes like stuff like that, you'll like appreciate it. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so okay, we'll just start from the beginning. So this is one of her. Now look at this. Look at the band. She does these cute little stamps on the band. Isn't that the prettiest? Ah, I thought it was so cute. Now look at this one. I mean, that is gorgeous. I mean, do you see the rainbow in that stone? Cassie. She asked me to refer to her as Cassie because I was calling her by her other name, the other name, and she specifically asked me to call her Cassie. I mean, this is my goal, you guys. My goal is to have an opal on every finger by the end of this year. I showed my husband, like, you know how when people like will renew their vows and stuff like that? This is what I want when me and my husband like do something like that, when we like renew our vows or whatever, our vows. I want to show y'all what I want. I want to get my jewelry from this place. Her name is Sarah Gardner. Sarah Gardner Fine Jewelry. Look at these fucking opal rings, y'all. That is what I want my wedding ring to look like when we renew our vows. When we renew our vows, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Do you see the two in the middle, dude? Like those are stunning. Okay, girl, see you when you get here. Look at this one, y'all. It literally looks like a freaking. Look at that. Ah, so that's what I want. I just love them. I think they're so beautiful, and they just are just they feel good to. I don't know what it is. I don't like diamonds. You know what I'm saying? Now, of course, when my husband got me this ring, when we first met and when we first got engaged and everything, like back then, I didn't understand the beauty of like gemstones, right? Oh no, Neil.
Wait, same spot?
I didn't understand the beauty of gemstones, so I was like, wanted a diamond. I wanted a diamond, you know. If I went back in time, I would totally want like an opal with like some beautiful gemstones like surrounding it for my wedding band and everything now. Because I just think they're so much more pretty, you know? Diamonds are like such a ripoff. You know what I mean? They're just, I feel like they're the way that the society rips us off, you know? And did you know that there's like, they sell you like those lab created ones? If you buy a lab created diamond, it's worth $0 if you ever try to trade it in or anything like that. I didn't know that. Okay, enough stone talk. Let me get Cassie on here. Hey, girl.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing good. I'm really excited to hear your story because I've never heard it before. So I'm pumped.
Yeah.
Let me tell you. So this is how we do it. You know, it's really simple. I basically let you take the floor, and I would just like you to share with us what it was like when you were growing up as a kid. Kind of like share with us, like, you know, did you come from a 2-parent household? Did you experience any trauma? And take us into how growing up, you know, how you got into using substances, and then what it was like during your substance abuse and how bad it got, and then what your life is like now. And that's it.
Okay, awesome. I was going to ask you, do you want me to tell it all? Because I mean, there's, you know, but I didn't want to.
Well, I mean, as much as you're comfortable with sharing, whatever you're comfortable with sharing, like I would kind of like so when I tell my story about when I was a kid, I kind of try to like touch on the points, like as in I was insecure, I struggled with my weight, I always felt like I couldn't fit in. I talk a little bit about my sister because she had bipolar disorder, and that kind of like affected our family because we didn't understand like mental illness and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I try to like touch on the things that I feel like really kind of influenced my life at a young age to where I started to use drugs. You know what I mean?
I agree. Well, and that's the thing. When I told you it was so complex, it really does start that young, you know? So I was like, does she want me to start from the beginning? So that's what I'll do. I'm glad you clarified that.
Yeah. I'm going to mute myself, and you just take if I have any questions, I'll just come in and ask you, but I'm just going to listen. Okay.
Okay. Awesome.
Okay, cool.
Okay. So I was born in Sarasota, Florida, and I lived there with my mom and my dad for the first 2 to 3 years of my life. My father is an alcoholic, and he has been for majority of his life. So unfortunately, he chose that lifestyle over being a father. And so around the age of 2, 3 years old, me and my mom, who she didn't really have a whole lot of family, it was just her and me. We ended up on the road, and it was just a struggle. For the first 4 to 5 years of my life, we were house jumping, staying with friends in different states all over the world. There were times that we lived in cars in the parking lot, you know, situation. And I always say that there's been angels that's kind of came into my life and saved me in a lot of ways, or redirected my path throughout my life, because around the age of 3, me and my mom were staying in the car in a Food Line parking lot in North Carolina, and a woman came out and seen us, just a random woman, and she took us in. She had seen us there several nights or whatever, and seen that my mom had a little baby. So she came over just to ask. And next thing you know, she's like, well, y'all can come stay with me. Took us in out, and, you know, didn't know us from Adam, and got my mama a job at Food Line. So from there, around the age of 3 to 4, that's when was the first taste of stability I'd had. And I was super young. So I do have memories of those things, but very, very blurry, like vague memories here and there of just, staying at her friend's house, then finally getting to the point where we could be in our own place. And it wasn't much, but it was ours. And then from there, when I was, and my dad, I didn't really see my dad. He didn't really come around or anything like that. But my mom, she was what I would consider, and I didn't know this till much later on in life, but I know it now. She is what she considers to be a high functioning addict. So I didn't know until I was about 16 years old that she even struggled with substance abuse, but she struggled her whole life. So she was doing that, and working as much as she could work. And then when I was about 5 is when she met my stepfather or stepdad, and the only man I ever called dad. So when he came into our life, things really changed. Like, he just came in and was like our saving grace. He got us out of that little rickety mobile home. We got our own place, a piece of land, all these things, really hard worker. And he didn't do anything. The worst thing that he ever done was drink a cold beer after a hard week's, work or
How,
whatever.
how do you think she never? Can I ask you this? How do you think your mom managed to not get caught up by CPS or something? You know what I'm saying? Because
Well,
I can't. I can imagine like seeing you guys sleeping in that car with a baby. My friend fell asleep in the car with her kid, just fell asleep, and somebody called CPS on her.
well, I think the only reason why is because we moved around state to state
So
so much.
okay,
So we weren't in one place for long. And North Carolina was the first like place we stayed in. From there we had been Virginia, Tennessee, Florida, all over Georgia. And it was very much that. And she didn't have any family or anything. But what I will say is, once she did get stable and she got a job and she got a place and all these things, my father, my sperm donor's family, started really like trying to fight with her about custody and stuff. And that was like a whole crazy thing where she let me go stay with them one Sunday, and my sperm donor, took me, and my mama didn't see me for several months and had to go through the whole court. So she didn't get me took away, but because they didn't have anything written up, she did have to go through a custody battle, and she did have to fight it. And it was such bullshit because my dad tried to say that I was sexually molested. Like, I don't know what I can say on here.
you can say whatever you
Um,
want to say.
okay. So when he got me, he had a new girlfriend. And basically, the only reason he even wanted me was because she wanted a little girl. So he got me. I went and stayed with my grandma. My grandma had talked my mama into let me stay that weekend, and I was supposed to be back home that Sunday at 6 o'clock. And my mom says, like, when 6 o'clock rolled around and I wasn't there, she started freaking out. Nobody would answer. And by the time she got in touch with my grandmother, my biological grandmother, I was already gone with my father. So they had set up this thing, took me, and then for the next several months, um, it was this custody battle where he had me in child therapy, and I don't remember any of it, but I was in child therapy. He tried to say that I had been sexually molested, and all I had was a yeast infection. So there was a lot of stuff like that going on. And then he wouldn't let me talk to my mom, or my mom talk to me, or let my mom know where I was. And my mom is like fighting this, with everything she's got. And by the end of it, when him and that girl broke up just a few months later, he basically was like, "Oh, well, you can have," just gave me back after giving my mama all this trouble, gave
Yeah.
me back and said, "You can have her. I don't even want her."
What a
And
douchebag.
he didn't show up to court. He wrote a letter that his attorney like turned in or whatever, saying that he wasn't going to fight it and he didn't want to push it. So from there, the judge told my mom I would never let him back in her life if I was you. And she didn't for until I got much older and like made my own choices and decisions. She did not. But after that whole ordeal, by that time, she had to be on her P's and Q's too. I mean, this is a custody battle, so she had to make sure she had a house and had a car and had all these things, a job, work, all that stuff. And she had all that worked out. So when I got back into the home, I would say it was maybe a year or two later when she met my stepdad, and they got married super, super quick within 7 months. And he was an literal angel. I mean, the hardest working man I've ever met in my life. Like I said before, he didn't have any history of substances, came from a good, big family. I wasn't used to that. So with him, it not only came like stability, but it also came a family dynamic I never had, and just so much stuff. So from the age of like 5 to 6 to 13, I had what I would consider your average childhood, a really good, decent childhood. We lived in the middle of nowhere. I had a lot of land to play, lots of cousins to play with. I wasn't around anything bad or anything of that nature, but I've always struggled with anxiety. I had child anxiety as a child. And just, I'm an overthinker. I overthink everything. So at the age of 13, it's your basic story of getting in with the wrong crowd, I guess you could say. And I got in with the wrong crowd, started kind of recreationally drinking and smoking cannabis, but it was very recreational. And for 3 years, I would say from 13 to 16, it was just recreational, just for fun, partying with friends on the weekends, summertime, just doing teenage stuff,
Yeah.
I did also experiment with opiates, and benzos as well, but it was so like very, very seldom. And to be honest, at that point in my life, that wasn't my thing. Like, I didn't like the way it made me feel. I didn't like anything about it as a teenager. I did like how cannabis made me feel though, because it really, really calmed my anxiety. It made me just happy and calmer, and things didn't pile up so heavy so quickly. So by the age of 16, I was a bona fide pothead, a bona fide pothead. And I smoked every day, and that was just and then from there I started smoking cigarettes. So cigarettes and cannabis became like an everyday thing. And then I would still recreationally drink when I was out and about with friends or whatever, but it wasn't a problem. But at 16, the day I turned 16, I ended up dropping out of school the day I turned 16, because I was just really in a rebellious stage, and my parents did not want me to drop out. They fought me tooth and nail. I mean, my daddy, even at 15 years old, walked me into that high school holding my hand, making sure I made it to class. But the second his back was turned, I would skip. And unfortunately, I had a friend that lived right beside the school, so it was just so easy to do.
Yeah.
So that happened, and I ended up dropping out of school. And the rule, if I was going to stay at the house, the whole thing was, they didn't want me to, but it had gotten to the point where the courts were going to be getting involved and they were going to get in trouble. And I didn't want them to get in trouble either. So they really had no choice but to let me. But the rule was, if you drop out, you got to get a job. You got to do this. You got to do that if you're going to live under this house. So I did. And I got my first little job at McDonald's. And it did not take long at all. Within 3 months, I realized like I really screwed up here.
Yeah.
Because,
School
and
would have been easier than the work.
yeah, and just everything. Like, I still kept my job, but I went back and got my GED quickly because it was still fresh. One and two, I knew I had messed up. I wanted to go back to school, but I was already so far behind. I'd already um, I was supposed to be a junior, and I was just now a sophomore, and then I was behind in my sophomore year too. So I was really behind. So I just went and got my GED instead, and that was another thing that happened very quickly within 3 months or so. And around that time, I had my first little long-term boyfriend, and he was a good kid. So whenever him and I got together, I stopped smoking pot. I stopped doing anything. He came from a really good family and, church family, all these things. And I moved in with him and I quit doing all of it except smoking cigarettes. That's been my downfall forever. But I did. I quit everything and things were good. And then we broke up after almost 2 years, or a year and a half, almost 2 years. We broke up, and that was when I experienced like my first heartbreak. And y'all know, all my ladies in here know that first heartbreak, it'll get you, man. It'll get you.
Girl.
And and it got me. And I'm already dramatic by nature anyways. So I was a wreck. I was dying. I was dying inside. And I just went ham. I didn't care. I just was partying with my friends, doing anything, everything I could get my hands on. I didn't want to cry. I didn't want to be sad. And it's crazy because I've been with my husband now over 13 years. So it's like,
Hmm.
but at that time, it's like, how can I live without this person? You get so used to this person.
I know what you
And
mean.
it's hard. And
When you're
so
young, I feel like it just hurts a different way because you
it
don't really
really does.
understand how to process it, you know?
Oh yeah, and I dang sure didn't. So it sucked, but I just went through a fuck it phase basically and started partying all the time. Moved in with one of my girlfriends, and that's it. It was summertime. We just went crazy with smoking, drinking. That was the basics of it, smoking and drinking, but it became an every night thing. And
Hmm.
then little by little that summer, and it happened so quick too, little by little, like someone offered us cocaine one night. And so that started kind of getting thrown into the mix. And then benzos, opiates. So it was just like this mixture of just whatever someone had, I was doing basically.
Yeah.
And on top of it, drinking and smoking too. So I was just doing everything. And that summer was a whirlwind, a whirlwind. But towards the end of that summer is when I got news. My mom called me and she said that my dad, the man who raised me, my stepdad, he had found out he had stage 4 colon cancer. And, I'm already going through this heartbreak. I'm already like trying to numb all this stuff because I don't want to don't know how to deal with it. And then you get news like that, so I ended up moving back home and just trying to spend, because I mean, it was bad. He did the chemo, he did all of that, but by the time they found it, it was already so bad
Hmm.
that it prolonged things, but it didn't really make a difference. And I was working and trying to help financially. My dad also was very stubborn and old fashioned, so he did not want a home nurse. He did not want any of that. So my mother and myself was his nurse, and up until literally the very end when hospice had to come in. And even then, he didn't go to a hospice. He refused to go to a hospice home. They came into our home. So that was a really rough time, and it was during that time, oh, I'll never forget it. You already don't make anything at McDonald's. I think at that time minimum wage was like 7.15, and I
Hmm.
was already like giving over half of that to my mom to try to help because my dad couldn't work anymore, and my mom didn't work, and he got SSI and stuff, but it's just not much, it just wasn't. So I'm giving most of my check to them, but I remember that I would allot myself $50 every check, and I would get a quarter bag of pot, a big gallon of two finger tequila, and just stay blazed all the time. Like, unless I was working. If I was working, I was not doing that. But any other time, after work, I would take like 6 shots just back to back to back, smoke a big one, and just chill. Because I don't even know how I was functioning. I was just mentally so I felt like I needed it. And that was the first time I felt that way. To be able to function, I needed to have this substance situation. And then spring break of 2009 is when I met my husband, and we knew each other. We were mutual growing up, so we knew who each other was, but we reconnected in 2009 at a house party. I was invited to his house, him and his brother's house, for a party, and I showed up there, and I knew his name sounded familiar, but I didn't realize it till I seen him, type of thing. And we just, automatically we reconnected, we chatted, and just had a good time. Did a lot of cocaine, and it was
Sounds like my kind of party.
and that's how it was.
Yeah.
And for the first several months, we were just friends, like just hanging out, partying. Whenever I wasn't working and whatever, we was hanging out. And then he was kind of like a rebound too. It did kind of start off like that. And yeah, and from there, of course, obviously, I think it was maybe 4 or 5 months down the road, we started kind of catching feelings for each other, and it was this gradual thing. And I think the both of us was kind of scared and was like, no, like he wasn't one to settle down. We were young too, like 18, so we weren't trying to settle. I just got out of a bad situation. My dad's dying, like all of this stuff. So both of us kind of got freaked out, and like stopped talking for a couple of months. But when my dad started taking a turn for the worse, it was so crazy because one day, out of the blue, we hadn't talked for like three or 4 months, a couple of months, and he just called me out of the blue, and we talked all night, and I cried to him and just all these things, and we just started talking again. But this time, when we actually started hanging out and dating and everything, I told him, minus the cannabis, because like I said, I was a pothead, that I was not going to be with anyone that was on drugs, that I didn't want to be around drugs like that. Like I wasn't trying, because I like scared myself that summer, seeing how easily I got hooked on it, and that scared me. So I was like, I cannot be around it. I don't want to be around it. I've never been around it like that, and I've seen how quickly it could get out of control. And his childhood, like he led a very different life than me. He was raised around it, and everyone around him in his family were very openly addicts, so he's seen a lot, whereas I was too. Like, I came from that as well, but my mama hid it very well, and my dad wasn't in my life. You know what I mean? So he's seen it, and grew up seeing it, and was doing hard drugs at a very, like, 9 years old. So that's the only life he really knew. And I told him, I was like, I like you and everything, but I just can't be around it like that. And so he ended up coming and staying with us. And like I said, my dad was getting really sick at this point too. So, and it was just me. I was the only child, me, my dad, my mom. And he came and stayed with us to basically clean out his system and get cleaned, because he was on methadone really, really bad. He was doing cocaine really, really, like just everything really, really bad. And he did. He came there. He he stopped everything cold turkey and really started helping my dad because my dad was getting super sick, and my mom, it was a homesteading situation, so wood had to be chopped and like things had to be done, the animals needed to be fed, and he really stepped up to the plate and started helping my dad a lot with those types of things, which only made me fall in love with him more because like he didn't have to do any of it. He didn't have to do any of it, but he chose to. And yeah, so um we did so the first okay, we did get married early, like very early on, and that wasn't necessarily planned. um like looking back at it and just everything, I'm glad it happened the way it did. I would have still married him, but I probably would have waited until a little bit later on. The only reason we got married so early was because my dad was very sick and he wasn't going to be there long. So we was together for 6 months and decided we was going to get married. And
Wow. Six
yeah,
months, that's it? Do you
yeah.
know how afraid I was to marry my husband? And I had been with him for damn near 8 years, and I was scared shitless to fucking
Yeah.
sign them papers.
Oh yeah, it was a scary situation, and we knew each other our whole lives, so that made it a little different because it's not he wasn't a complete stranger, but we did rush it. And um originally we was just going to do like a little court wedding situation just
Yeah.
so that my dad could be there and walk me down the aisle and things like that, and then maybe have a ceremony later on. um but we ended up having a backyard wedding instead, last minute. I mean, literally last minute, threw this wedding together. 70 people came, like all this stuff, and we got married, and it was an amazing, like I said, I wouldn't trade it for nothing. But we didn't go on a honeymoon. We didn't, it was not traditional in the sense of like a traditional wedding. It was very like a shotgun wedding kind of.
Yeah.
And I didn't wear a dress. I just wore like a white skirt, white shirt, and all of this. And but it was very special, very much something I'll hold cherish for the rest of my life. But the thing is about it is, we were doing so good. We were doing so good. Like I said, I knew the only people I knew from his family really was his mom, um, and his brother and his sister. His dad's side of the family, I had heard of them. I knew what his daddy was into and the stuff his daddy did, but he did not want me around that side of his family. He was very much ashamed of a lot of his family. And I think, like, we've talked about it now, I think he was worried that I wouldn't want to be with them,
Oh.
which wouldn't have been the case, but I think that's what he was worried about. And he was just embarrassed, I guess. But um, my dad ended up, so I didn't know anyone but his mom and his brother and his sister, and that is it. We got married so quick. And then um, after my dad passed away, we got married in June. My dad passed away at the end of September.
Oh man.
So after my dad passed away, of course, that was very traumatic for me. And he literally died in my arms, with just me and my mom there. I mean, and it happened so sudden and so quick. Of course, we knew it was going to happen, and we had already, like, family had already came in. But that morning, he was up, walking, talking, like everything was fine. 5 minutes before he died, everything was fine. And then it just happened so quick.
Have you ever
And
heard that that's what happens before they die? They get this like burst of energy before they die. It's like
yeah,
their last
yeah,
hurrah. I don't know what it is. It happened to my grandma too.
I
When
believe it.
she was dying from cancer, and my dad went to go take care of her until she died. And they get this, I don't know, I guess it's the last bit of their energy coming out of them
Yeah.
before they go over to the other side, you know?
Yeah, it's crazy because that's how he was. He was already to the point where they were keeping him doped up with
Yeah.
morphine. And he was waking up, he would sleep all the time. And when he would wake up, it was just cough, 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 because the cancer just spread everywhere. And he, at that point, wasn't on chemo or nothing no more. So it was literally about keeping him comfortable. And I remember the nurse told us, like, I know you're going to want to give him food and water. You're going to think like he needs food, he needs water. But what he needs right now is to be as comfortable as possible and not in pain. So, because we were trying to make him drink and make him eat and things like that. And they were like, his body does not need that right now. But so that's how it had been for over a week. And he had been that like deathly ill. But that day he had gotten up, he had like talked to everybody, walked around, he got up and drank some coffee that morning, like all of these different things. And then within, like I said, a 5-minute span, he went to the restroom, walked himself to the restroom with his cane, was walking back and trying to catch his breath, and was like, I can't breathe. So he sat down and we put his oxygen on him. And from there, it just all just like happened so quick. And, my mom, she's calling the hospice nurse, calling family, like, I think he's dying. Like, I don't know what's going on. He can't breathe. And he's sitting there with this oxygen on, like grabbing at it, because it's not helping him. And I looked at him and I said, do you want me to take it off? And he said, yes. So I took it off of him and he calmed down a little bit and he laid back. And I remember like rubbing his hair backwards or whatever. And I said, does that feel better? And he's like, yeah, that's a little bit better, because he was like freaking out so bad.
Yeah.
And I remember rubbing his head back and I could see it was turning colors already. And he was just gasping for air. And when I seen that, I stepped outside and started to cry. And then I felt guilty for being outside crying. So I went back in and I told him I loved him. And, and it just happened very quick from there. And it was so many mixed emotions. Like, I remember after the fact, I stood there and just watched him for like 10 minutes after he passed, because your body goes through stuff. And I thought he was still alive.
Yeah.
And I wanted him to know I was there,
Yeah.
And my mama, she was, of course, all to hell. So she had to be took away and all this stuff. And I just remember afterwards, and once I knew like he was really not there no more, I went outside and I was just scream and cry, and then just punch my husband, bless his heart, in the chest, just punch him, and then grab him and hug him, and then I was just like there was no consoling me, and I was so angry and mad and upset and confused and just all these things. So after that, however, your brain can go, everyone deals with grief differently, but your brain can go through your brain can do some crazy things to you. And after a day or two, my brain had tricked me into being like, I knew he wasn't there no more, but my brain had tricked me into like, he's going to be back. He just went away. He's coming back. And I don't know if it was just a way to like help me get through. Like, I knew he wasn't there. I knew that, and I knew he was dead. I watched him die, but it's like in my brain, it's like, oh, he's just on vacation. He's going to be back. This is just a bad dream. And I made myself believe that up until literally his funeral. And I don't know, I was just so numb. Like, I couldn't cry. I had no emotion. And it was very weird. I just felt nothing. And then after a week or two, after we laid him to rest and all of that, it hit me. I woke up one morning and it just hit me like that. And I just went and laid on his bed and cried and cried. And after, just trying to deal with that and try to be strong for my mom, because my mom was really bad. Like, we had to get all the guns out of the house. We had to get all of his medicine out of the house. It was horrible. And I was watching her like a hawk because she was saying a lot of stuff. And that had me scared for her. And my dad had, like, one of the last things I promised him is that I would look after her and take care of her because he was really worried about how mama was going to be. And, I tried. I really did. I tried really hard to be strong for her and to watch her and take care of her. And, of course, my husband as well. But I started really harping to my husband about, you need to try to have a relationship with your father. Like, I don't want you to regret not trying to have a relationship with your father. And um, he kept telling me, like, it's not a good idea. You don't understand. It's not a good idea. And I'm like, I get it. Like, I knew his dad was a drug dealer, and I knew all these things. He did things he shouldn't do, in and out of prison, around a lot of stuff that we didn't need to be around. But in my head, it's like, none of that mattered. That is your dad. You need to try, at least try. And so I pushed it, which now in hindsight, I wish I hadn't have, but I pushed it, not really knowing the severity of the situation. Even though he told me, I didn't know the severity of the situation. And then, the holidays came around, Thanksgiving and all this. And I'm like, well, we're going to go to your dad's for Thanksgiving. I swear to you, we went there on a holiday, on Thanksgiving, and we ate all of that stuff, but literally right after eating, his dad disappeared. And I was like, where did your dad go? Where's he at? He's like, oh, he went out in the woods. And they had like this abandoned trailer back down there. And like, we went down there looking for him or whatever. And when we got to that house, my husband was like, I'll go in there. You stay out here. And I'm like, no, like, that's so stupid. Like, if you're going to go, I'm going to go. And he was in there, and there was like all these people in there. There was no power, no nothing, sitting around shaking a bottle. And
Shake
uh,
and bake.
yeah. And I did not know what I was seeing. I didn't know what, like, I knew it was something, but I didn't know what.
Yeah.
And, my husband's like, yeah, you don't need to be in there. You don't need to smell that. We don't need to be in there. And I was like, no, it's all good. Like, I was curious. I didn't know what it was, like, all of these things. And my husband was like, no, but I'm stubborn. And I was like, we're here to spend time with your daddy. Your daddy's down here. Well, I guess we're going to be down here. It's Thanksgiving. And I quickly realized what the situation was or whatever. And I was automatically intrigued by it. Just because I'd never seen it, didn't know anything about it. I could tell my husband was very uncomfortable, like, about it all. And he just kept making comments about going back up to the house. So after I've seen the whole process, and mind you, he's doing this in front of all these people, like, just
Yeah.
wide open. And this was the first time I ever met him. And I'm just like, this is normal. Just like some people, like, this is normal. And I was just intrigued by it. And then after the whole process, me and my husband walked back up, and I'm just sitting there, like, trying to process all of this. Like, what did I just see? Like, what is going on? And his dad came up a few minutes later, and we ended up smoking with them. And I remember when it passed around, again, never seen anything like this. The worst I had done at this point was benzos,
Mhm.
and like once or twice, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
um, and it passed around once, and my husband hit it. And when he hit it, I was like, well, if he hit it, I'm going to hit it. And I just remember my heart, that first time, my heart just like pumping out of my chest. And that was it. And then I was super happy, like on cloud nine, so happy, just it was the weirdest thing. It was just a major upper that
Yeah.
first time. I never felt that again, never felt that again. But that first time, I literally felt my heart come out of my chest. And then I was just so happy, talking 90 miles per hour, like telling everybody I love them, wanting to hug everybody, like all of this stuff. And I was just on cloud nine. Couldn't go to bed that night, couldn't nothing. But I remember, and I literally just hit it once. That's it, just one time.
Methamphetamine is no joke. It's
It's no
powerful.
joke. It's no joke, but it's crazy because that was my first experience with it. And then, like I said, I tried to go to sleep. I felt my brain started to feel tired, but I couldn't go to sleep. And I was like, dang, I only hit it one time. Like, this is crazy. Why can I not go to sleep? And by 7, 8 o'clock that morning, when the sun's coming up, I am so sick in the bathroom puking from one hit. And I'm like, what the heck? So we ended up leaving. We got up. My husband went to bed. Once he got up, we left. And they did ask us if we wanted to hit it again, and we both said no. Because I already felt bad. Like, here I am. I'm sick as a dog. My husband didn't even want to be here. My husband begged me not to go in this house. All of these things. And I pushed it and I pushed it and I pushed it. And he, now looking at it, I know it's because he was scared he'd already lived
Yeah.
them. You know, I didn't know anything about being an addict. I didn't know anything about substances like that, like nothing. So, but that happened. And I remember, like, I felt so bad for like a couple of days. And I kept apologizing to him about it. But then there was that part of me that really wanted it too. And it was the craziest thing. Like, I wanted to feel that feeling again. And I remember explaining it to my husband and being like, I just really like that feeling though. I wish like you could get that feeling from something, because it was crazy. One hit and I'm just like on cloud nine. But so we ended up, like a couple days later, we ended up slipping up and doing it again, and the same way, smoking it, and it didn't give me that feeling. I never got that feeling again, but I chased it for 2 years. And after that second time trying it, I did not stop. I did not stop, and I smoked every day for 2 years. Um, Honestly, a lot of that part of my life is very foggy. Like, I remember bits and pieces of it. I remember knowing exactly how to make it, every step that it took, you know, um, laughing at people, tweaking and freaking out and being up for days and like thinking that was funny and all of this
I was so
stuff.
stupid, girl. I was that person who was inside the. We didn't do shake and bake. They were like, it was like a lab that I lived at with my friend in this
Oh, it's
trailer.
the real deal.
I would have a fucking crystal gemstone stuck into between my eyeballs, and I'd be so high. People would be asking me, "Girl, what's she doing?" And I'm like, like I'm talking to my inner self. I'm in my third eye.
That's funny. Well, we went to this, and I'm not trying to, but this is kind of funny. Like, I remember we pulled up one day at his daddy's house. We ended up moving in with his daddy. And at that point, it was just
Oh
such
no, that could have not have been good.
no, it was not. It was not good at all. At all. But I remember we pulled up at his daddy's one day, and there was this girl in the front door with binoculars looking across the road. And we're walking in, like walking up the steps. We're like, what you doing? And she's looking out the screen door with these binoculars. She says, you see those people up there in that tree? And they're fucking with her, like telling her, oh, yeah, they're up there. All right. And she's like, there's like 11 of them in there. She's like, look. And there's nothing there, like nothing. And people would fuck with them though. And people, like, when you're out there like that, it's funny. You're looking at it now, it's not. But at that time, that's what was funny to people. But when we moved in with his dad was when it really, really got bad, because it was such easy access. We did his running for him. He would give us stuff. and he would only give us so much, that way we wasn't overdoing it, and he knew, and like all of this stuff. But we were doing things, a lot of things we shouldn't have been doing. Um, and it just got really, really bad. But the reason, so that went on for 2 years, and things started getting really heavy towards the 2 year mark there, with his dad and his dad's girlfriend. And she had lost her child. DSS had came in, took the baby. And I won't never forget that day either, because they showed up unannounced, and here we are, like cleaning like crazy, throwing stuff on the truck, trying to get stuff out of there. Like, it was wild. A child didn't need to be there. A child didn't need to be there. But,
No, no,
at that
totally not.
time,
I mean, imagine those fumes just from, even though it's just coming out of the bottle and stuff, being around the little
yeah.
baby. You know that in some houses where that's done at, like even after it's already stopped, like the people have moved out. People move in there, and the stuff is in the walls. And
Oh,
there
yeah.
was kids that were testing positive for methamphetamine from
Mhm.
it being like in the walls from when they were cooking in there.
Oh, yeah, I believe that, because, and see, that's the thing. They would use that abandoned house all the time. But
Mm,
then, I think everybody just got so bad out there that, you push the envelope a little bit more. And that's like addiction in a nutshell. Like, you do a little bit, and then a little bit more, and a little bit more, things you never think you would do.
yeah,
And before you know it, you're in the bathroom in the house you live in, battery pieces on the floor. You're walking around barefooted,
yeah,
like just stupid stuff like that. And that's how bad it got. But so she got her child took away, and then his dad got popped hard. His dad got popped hard. And first the state picked him up. And of course, we're all like freaking out. We're all freaking out. And then right after we got him out on bond, went through all this stuff to get him out on bond. And literally the day we got him out on bond, and within a couple of days, it is so messed up the way that they did it, but they turned it over to the feds. The feds picked it up.
yeah.
And so we got him out. My mama put all of her land up to get him out. He gets out, and dang, 3 or 4 days later, they call him. The police office calls him and says, "Hey, your belongings are ready for you to come pick up your truck, your all your stuff, if you want to come pick it up." And that's all he said to him. So his girlfriend took him on down there, and that's the understanding we had. He was going to pick his stuff up, and the feds were there waiting on him, and they took
Damn.
his butt too. And he ended up getting a lot of, well, I say a lot of 10 years to me is a lot of time,
Yeah,
you
10?
know?
You said 10? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
So,
most of the time, I think that, like, I know most guys who have, like, their first offense for meth, it's like maybe 5 years they get, So, I
yeah.
mean, 10 years, that's a lot. Because I know one of my friends was, he was offered 20 on a habitual offender case.
And that's after they dropped it, because they were first talking like he was going to get 21.
Yeah.
And then it dropped, and his bond it was ridiculous. Like, there was just no way he was getting out. There was no way. And so he ended up going to Fed time, and come to find out, like, a lot of those people had written statements on him. His girlfriend had written statements on him. His girlfriend had written statements on all of his kids. Had written statements on everybody so that she wouldn't get in trouble. His
Yep.
best friend had written statements on us. So we had 2 statements against us, and we had people saying to us too that, you get one more, you're gone, you're gone. If you get one more, you're out of here. And I started freaking out. I'd never been to jail ever. And my husband had never really been in jail, like never overnight, nothing like that.
Yeah.
So we ended up leaving and going to Florida and staying just to get away, and to try to get cleaned out. Because when you're on meth, you're like, that's already a scary situation. But when you're on meth, you're even more paranoid. And it's
Yep.
like, we had no option. Like, you got to go. We got to get out of here. They're watching us. They're looking for us. And, we really just made ourselves believe that, because, I mean, dang, there was a lot going on. So we ended up leaving. and going to Florida for a week and staying with my sperm donor. And he was drunker than Cooter Brown the whole time. It was so ridiculous. But and getting in bar fight, like it wasn't much. I can't say much better. Like if we can't really weigh it, but because I was still drinking and stuff, but I was getting away from the meth,
Meth,
which
yeah.
was a huge problem for me at the time. And so that happened. We stayed there for like a week or so, and I'll be honest, like the worst part about coming off meth for me was just no energy. I didn't have much energy. But
Ugh.
other than that, it really wasn't that bad. I
Yeah, there's
wasn't
not a bunch
super
of
sick.
physical withdrawal to it. A lot of people like try to say that it's not so much it's not physical withdrawal. Like you feel like shit, you're tired. You might
Yeah,
be a little achy because when you were high, you were like running all over the place and doing all kinds of shit. But it's mostly psychological. It's mostly
yes.
in your mind withdrawal, you know?
Oh yeah, that was the worst part for me was well, honestly, with all of everything I've ever dealt with, it's been mental. The mental part has been the hardest part for me. Um, but so we got cleaned up and dried out, and we ended up going back to North Carolina and going and staying with my mom and starting over, like just starting over. Because I mean, 2 years went by so quick. It's crazy how quickly it goes by in that world, and then it's just gone, but you don't really get that time back. And so it didn't feel like 2 years, but it had been 2 years. So when we came back, we was doing good. Like I said, this whole time I still smoked. I always smoked cannabis up until my mid 20s. So I always smoked cannabis, and I would still recreationally drink. But I will say, after I got off meth is when I started drinking heavier, because I always was trading one thing for another or one
Yeah.
thing for another. Um, so, but shortly after coming back, after a couple months, is when I found out I was pregnant with my firstborn, my son, and that was it. I was so grateful that I had got off meth. I found out very early too. I was only 6 weeks pregnant. Um, so that was good. And I wasn't doing anything other than smoking cannabis. And gradually I stopped doing that as well. As I got further along, I just kind of weaned myself down on that. Um, but and when of course when he was born, like literally he was perfect. But I had a lot of complications throughout that pregnancy, like just like everything you could think of. It just felt like everything you could think of was going wrong in that pregnancy. I had preeclampsia. I had the gestational diabetes that they had to keep watch of. Had to go to a high risk doctor, and all of these things. And then I ended up going into labor. Um, 6 weeks early. No, I was exactly 37 weeks when I went into labor. And so that's 7, 8, 9, 2, 4 weeks early. And they tried to stop it. They couldn't stop it. So, but I was only out of 2 centimeters, but they couldn't stop it.
Mhm.
So they ended up having to induce me and all of this stuff. And when it came time, like I had this whole birthing plan. I was like, I want to do everything naturally. I don't want no medicine. This is the way I want it done. No matter what, no matter what. And that was my plan. Well, when the time came and I got to 6 centimeters, I was dying. I wasn't like screaming, crying, but you definitely heard me. And I was like, okay, yeah, I need that epidural. I need that epidural. So they gave me the epidural, and my body, like they say, it can happen one of two ways. Either it takes too good, or some people complain that it don't take good enough. Well, mine took real good, real good. And I couldn't feel anything from below my titties down to my toes.
That's how mine was. I couldn't feel anything either at
Oh,
all.
it was bad. It was so bad. So when it got to the point of them saying it was time to push and everything, I'm sitting there like pushing with everything I got. and they said, push with your butt. I will never forget this. They was like, you're not pushing with your butt. You need to push with your butt. Push with your butt. And I said, I can't feel my butt
Yeah.
because I couldn't feel my butt. And I pushed so hard that I literally busted like a vessel in my eye. But he wasn't coming. Every time they would see his head coming out, I would have to take a breath and he'd go back in. So they ended up having to do an emergency C-section. And that was scary because his oxygen was dropping. I could hear his heartbeat like going crazy. The doctors and the nurses were screaming at each other, and they was like, we got to take you back right now. We got to get him out now. And that's another thing that happened real quickly. They had me on oxygen, all of this stuff, and they're wheeling me through. And they was like, your husband cannot go. He has to stay in here. Nobody can go back there. And they told me they was going to have to put me to sleep because they did not even have time for the medicine to like hit me they needed to cut me open like right then. So I'm going back there, not even being able to really say bye to my husband or nothing, not really understanding what's going on. They're slamming me through the doors, just screaming at each other. It was very traumatic. And they pushed me over onto the bed, and they're explaining to me that they're going to give me stuff to put me to sleep. And I remember grabbing the nurse by the hand while they're explaining this to me. And I said, just promise me if it comes down to it and you have to like choose me or my baby, please, please save my baby. I don't care what it takes. Please save my baby. And I was put to sleep. And that was the scariest thing in the world because when I woke up, I didn't see my baby anywhere. I didn't hear my baby crying. I didn't know what happened to my baby. And, when you first wake up from being asleep, like everything's blurry. It takes you a minute to see stuff. So, but that was the first thing I asked before I could even see. All I seen was light and just fuzziness. I was like, where's my child? Because I could hear people. And they said he was okay. He was with daddy, which was great. So after recovery, we go back there and I finally get to hold him. And they did say like when he was born, he was not breathing and they had to bag him for 15 minutes before he took his first breath. But because he had never took a breath before of oxygen, he was fine. They said if he had even took a tiny breath, he would have been like brain dead, no brain activity. So that was a miracle. And I'm sitting there holding him, and he's so tiny because he's, early.
Why do you think he had so many complications? Why?
Well, come to find out, months later, it was because there was an infection in my placenta. They sent it off, and it came back saying, but they didn't tell me what it was. They just said that there was an infection that had caused me to go into labor. But so I'm sitting there holding them, and I swear, again, it's like it just all happened so quick. Again, they come in there, they said that I was starting to turn yellow, and they had to put me on magnesium so that I wouldn't start having seizures. And it was just all this stuff happening. And they told me that something wasn't right with my liver enzymes, and something was not right. So they was doing all these tests. Come to find out, I had gallstones, and they were not in the right place. Like they were in a duct they weren't supposed to be in. And they said it was very serious to get it out, but it was a surgery that was so precise that you had to be so precise about it that place was not like educated enough to do it. So then they had to transfer me with a newborn baby, just had a C-section, to a bigger hospital to go through all of that. And long story short, so I'm not spending too much time on this part. It took a total of 3 to 4 months before I was able to hold my son by myself. I had 4 different procedures done. They had to do a laparoscopic procedure to get the gallstones out of the place that they weren't supposed to be in. Then they had to do it to get the other ones out. Then after I recouped from my C-section and those 2 surgeries, they went ahead and took my gallbladder out. because I was super sick, like puking and stuff all the time. So it was a lot, and it took me a couple of months to recover. And my son was 4 or 5 months old before I actually got to hold him and walk around with him by myself. And of
Damn.
course, along with all of this craziness, they put me on pain medication.
Oh, yeah.
So that was that was the beginning of that. And they had me on perk 10s. I'll never forget it. And I was abusing them very quickly. I started abusing them and taking more than I should have. But what I will say is I really was in a lot of pain at that time. One, and two, the doctor was giving them to me like candy. Like candy. They would give me like 60 a week. And then I would call them and tell them like I need more, and he wouldn't ask questions, wouldn't nothing, would just give them to me. Just give
Back
them to
then, it
me.
was like that. It was like
Yeah.
that.
And
Yeah.
I thought it was the craziest thing because, and then of course my husband started using them as well, and I started sharing with him. So it just started this whirlwind with that. And um, you know, at the time I was like, I'm not doing anything wrong. These are prescribed to me. I need them. I'm in pain. All of this stuff. It's helping me be able to function. But then after, like, they had me on them for, I don't know, probably it was a while, 6 months, maybe longer. And then no questions, no nothing. They just took them. Like, they just took them. One time I called and said, "Hey, can you refill these?" And they said, no, I think they did give me maybe like 15 or something like that, but that was it. And then after that, there was no more. There's like, we can do this, but after this, we won't be able to do anymore. And I seen that, like, I seen it coming, but I didn't at the same time because they were feeling them like no problem and
Yeah.
hadn't said anything about taking me off of them. But I mean, common sense tells you you're not supposed to be on them forever. But at that point, I had just really gotten to where that became a big part of my routine, was taking that medicine to function. And I don't know if it was real or if it was in my head, but I felt like I needed it or I was in pain. And so when they took me off of them is when I started buying them off the streets, and that got costly very quickly. And that also escalated very quickly. Um, so I was getting like Roxy 30s, and that's all I would do. I was very picky. And one day we could not get them. They just were not around anywhere. And my husband's cousin was like, "Hey, I can get you something that is way better, way cheaper, and it's going to keep you high way longer." And I was like, "Bullshit, like that don't even sound realistic." And he's like, "I'm serious, man, I'm serious." And he didn't tell us what it was. He didn't, whatever. I had been like running that whole day. We had been looking for something. And it was just so he just went and got it. And it was something, I don't know if you've ever heard of these, but they're called Opanas.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
And so he had an Opana 20, and I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." And he's like, "It's a pain medicine. It's an opiate." I was like, "Oh, okay, cool, cool, cool." And he's like, "But the thing is you gotta do it via IV." And I'm like, "What? What do you mean?" Like, waits till he gets it, brings it, shows it to me, and says, "Oh, here it is. Oh, but this is the only way you can do it." And again, I didn't know anything about that life, and I did not have this first go round. I did not have my son with me. He was with my mom. But anyways, so I was scared. My husband went first. He had used before in his past, way before me, and so he was no like stranger to that life. And I watched him first because I was scared, and then afterwards I went, and dropped me to my knees. I mean, dropped me to my knees. And I remember I was so scared that I made him squirt half of it out because of the way my husband reacted. Because when
Right.
he done it, he grabbed his chest and was like, got red. His neck was red all over. Like, it was scary. And I'm like, "Are
Yeah.
you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay?" And he couldn't talk to me. So I was like, take some of that out, please. Like, I don't want that to happen to me. And it still happened, you know. Um, and
It's always scary your first time shooting up with
oh
any drug.
Oh yeah, I bet so. See, and that's the thing is I was so picky, but that was all I would was Opanas or Roxy's. I never shot up meth. I never shot up, not that it makes it any better by no means. I was just very, even in my addiction, I was such a worrywart. And so I don't know. I was just always been an overthinker. It's like, oh no, I can't do this. Like it's any better, you know? But
What
in
happens
my brain,
is
it
like
made sense.
that's how I was at first too, but then I was around people who were shooting meth all the time. I would say, "Oh, I will never do that. No
Yeah,
way. I'm scared to do that." But after a while of seeing them do it, it wears on you. And you
it
see
does.
them coming out of the back bedroom and they look triple high than I was,
Yeah,
you know? And I'm like, "Why are they so much higher than me? That's not fucking fair."
yeah.
So one day I finally just said, "Ugh, just give it to me. Just do it to me, you know?"
Yep, yep, I do know. And that's with meth, mostly I just smoked. I did snort it a few times, but it just hurt too bad for me. And I did like a couple of hot rails, but that was the worst. This, you know, was there was no nothing compared to this. And it was the hardest thing I ever overcame in my life. Um, and it did. It made me do a lot of things that I am not proud of. Um, and it's hard to talk about because I'm not. I think I look back at that person and the person who did all of these things when I was via IV user and all this, and it had gotten to the point my tolerance got built up really quick. So between me and my husband, we were shooting 2 Opana 40s a piece a day, and they costed a lot of money. So we were spending like hundreds of dollars a day just to get high. And, his little job wasn't enough. Mine wasn't. So then we started hauling, like just doing whatever we could do to get money, taking stuff to the pawn shop,
Yep.
taking stuff to my mama, things that I would never do, things that I literally, and I always had the intentions in getting it back. And I remember I would say that, like, we got to get this back. You promised we'll get this back. And I had those intentions. I had every intentions,
Yeah,
but
I know how you feel. Don't be ashamed. I know that it's kind of like hard to talk about because you're like, I'm not that way anymore. But like, we've all been through that. I did the same thing, girl. I pawned stuff that was so important to my mama and never got it back. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I pawned like my grandma that died that gave my mom this ring, and that, like, it was horrible stuff, you know. And
yeah,
I wanted to get it back. I even made little sticky notes to remind me to
yeah,
go and pay the pawn shop on Friday, and I
yeah.
still lost it, you know. So don't be ashamed. We've all been there.
Yeah, and I know, and I think that that's been the hardest part in recovery is that part of it because that happened and it was my mom. I knew she would love me no matter what. And I think, and it wasn't like I was stealing from everybody, but I did. I would take from her, and because I knew I could get away with it. And she didn't know, like she believed me when she would ask me when she knew something was wrong, she knew something was off, but I was doing a really good job, I thought, at keeping it together on the surface. If you didn't know, you didn't know. I was taking care of my baby. I wasn't having my baby around it. I wasn't like taking my baby to do things like that. My baby had the diapers, food, this, like, you know what I mean? And it validated my addiction because it's like, oh, you can do this. You're doing just fine. It's not affecting nobody. And it was even the pawn shop situation. It's like, you're going to get that back. It's not a big deal. You're not doing nothing wrong. And then my husband lost his job. And when he lost his job, oh God, that is when it really got the worst, because we had to have money. We had to be high. Like in our head, it was survival mode.
Yeah,
And
because you get sick if you don't have those Roxys.
yeah,
You
and
know.
Opanas, like, oh, they're like around here where I'm from, they were like the strongest medicine, like
Hmm.
pain medicine you can get. And my tolerance was so built up. It was so bad. And we were spending, I mean, they were going for ridiculous amounts of money.
How much were y'all paying for the Roxy 30s? We were paying. I was paying $30 a Roxy.
They
Because
got
all
up
over
to
Military.
45. They got up to 45 around here.
Oh
And
wow, yeah.
the Opanas, like for a 10 milligram or 20 milligram, when I first started, you could get a 10 milligram for like 15, $20. But
Hmm.
it got so bad that they went up on everything. So a 10 milligram was $30, and then it just went up from there. It was crazy. So it got very costly. And to get the 40 milligrams, we were paying $80 a piece.
Yep.
And I needed two a day. He needed two a day. That's a lot of money.
Yep.
Um, so we started hauling scrap and doing all this stuff, like odd end jobs, landscape, and whatever we could do to like make a little bit of money so that we could get by every day. And it just wasn't enough to feed our habit, plus take care of our child, financially, um, and all of this. So we ended up, we ended up literally junking a perfectly good vehicle, because we had no money, and it was the only way we could have money. And we got like $200 out of it. Like it got to that point. It just got that bad where I remember there were so many times that I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm tired of this life. I hated myself. Like I had such a self-loathing for myself that it's crazy. And I would throw my stickers, my things away, and then throw it all away and say, I don't ever want to do this again. I don't ever want it around no more. Like I can't do this. And by the next damn morning, I'm digging in that trash can trying to find it. And um it just got so bad, we were starting to bounce checks, everything. I remember going and opening up a whole bank account just so that I could get checks. You know what I mean? And it's like you don't rationalize these things in your head. You're just doing it, just doing it, just doing it. And people were giving me these thoughts too, because I didn't know any, like, they're like, hey, you can do this and you can do that. And
Yeah, they teach you the tricks of the trade.
oh yeah, oh
My
yeah.
husband, when I met him, we did the same thing with his bank account because he was in such good standing with his bank. We would get it down and then we would overdraft it and they would cover our overdrafts.
Yep,
You know what I'm
yep,
saying? And
yep.
so we would do that over and over and over again. One time, my sister caught me shooting up in the bathroom. She grabbed my rig, took it outside, threw it in one of those big ass green fucking dumpsters. Bitch, my
Mhm.
ass climbed the dumpster and dove head
Yeah,
first into that dumpster to go
yeah.
get my rig.
The worst that it for me, because I, like I said, I live in the sticks, or I lived in the sticks. So we had like this big, huge cliff. And I remember throwing it over that cliff where there's nothing but trash. I mean, just trash, where people just threw their trash off of it.
Yeah, like a dumping site.
Yes. And then the next day we got something, and I was like, oh my God, like I literally walked, like held on to a freaking vine and
And
like
lowered yourself
walked
down
on it.
there
Yes, girl.
to get it.
And then bleached it out, all this stuff. You know what I mean? Like it's just crazy the things we'll do, and it did. It got to that point, and the store that I was cashing these bad checks at was a store that knew me my whole life, which kind of, thank God, like, oh, just thank God. I'm very lucky because um they knew me my whole life, and everyone around me could see that something wasn't right, and I was lying to everybody. And those checks started to bounce, and they was telling me, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll bring you the money Friday. I'll bring you the money Friday. Then I wouldn't come. And then my mom, she's like starting to ask, where's this at? Where's that at? Oh, so and so's fixing it. It'll be here Friday. It'll be here Friday. And that caught up with me, and that web of lies just really caught up with me. And I remember we was over at my husband's grandma's house, and my mama pulled in. She had got off the phone with one of my dear friends and asked him just straight up, like, you need to tell me what is going on with my daughter. If you know what's going on with my daughter, you need to tell me. And she told her everything. And so my mom showed up over there, and we really wasn't doing anything wrong there. We were really just at his grandma's, but we would have ended up going and getting something or something. And I remember my mama pulled in, and she didn't knock on that door. She didn't nothing. She barreled in, and she said, I know what you've been doing, and you've got two choices. Either you come with me right now, or you're not going to like the second choice. I can promise you that. And I was like, instantly started crying or whatever. And she's like, this is it. She's like, this, I don't know to the extent, but I need to hear it from you. I need to hear from you what's going on. And so I went, and I remember looking at my husband, because my husband wasn't going to go. He's like, I don't got to listen to the shit, blah, blah, blah. And I remember just giving him a look, and he knew I was going to go. Like, I was just so done. I was so done lying. I'm a horrible liar. I'm a horrible liar. And I had done it for so long, and I was just so tired and so exhausted and felt awful, and everything's like, you're stressed out about everything,
Yeah.
I was tired of waking up, doing all this shit that I didn't even want to do, just to get high for 5 minutes and still be miserable, So I looked at him, I said, I'm going. And he did not get up. And I told him, I was like, I got the baby or whatever, and I walked out, and I'm just bawling because I was like, he's not going to come with me. He's not going to come. And I got in the car to get the baby situated and everything. And my mama starts to pull out, and I said, just give him a minute. Just give him just one more minute. And he did. Like, right when we was about to pull out, he came out and got in the car with us. And he knew that meant, like, that was the beginning for us, of trying to get clean and all of this stuff. And it was a long uphill battle, because originally me and him both were going to go to a detox facility and do that for 7 days. And then, depending on where we was, either go to rehab or whatever. So we had to go get medically cleared, do all of that stuff. We both got medically cleared, but they wouldn't take both of us because we were married.
Yep.
And
I think that's fucked up. I think that they should allow people who are married to go into treatment together. Honestly, me and my husband, we got sober together. And a lot of people that are married get sober together. And it's helpful to be able to go in there, not have to worry about your significant other being out there running the streets. Nowadays, there's treatment centers that actually allow you, if you're a couple, to come in, which I think is awesome, honestly.
Yeah, that's amazing, because, and I think another thing is, and I've thought about opening up and talking about this more on my second channel, because like state funded places are just like, because I had Medicaid. So the facility that covered what I had insurance wise, it was shit. It was a horrible place. And they did not give it. They did not care about us. It's like, it's a resource only because they had to have that resource. They
had to be there. The counselors that are there are underpaid. They're overworked. They have like so many staff. They have so many clients on their client load that they're like, they've lost their. It's like, to me, to work helping people in recovery, you got to have the passion for it. You got to be on fire to get people excited about their recovery and excited about wanting to change their life. If you've lost that and you're still doing it and you're miserable, you need to get out of the fucking out of the treatment industry and stop doing that, because you end up hurting people.
Yeah. And another thing is, like, the place where I went, because so we talked about it, and my husband was like, well, you need to go, because he really is like mentally a very strong-willed person. And if he wants to do something, he can do it. You know what I mean? He's done it before. He did it before. And he made it look so easy when he did it before. And it was a choice he made completely on his own. So he's like, I'll be fine, but I'm worried that you won't be, because I had already tried to stop so many times while I was out, and I was so dead set. Like it would be that night, and I'd say I'm done, and I felt so much better just saying it and like putting it out there, and I'm like, I'm done, like this is it. And the next morning, before I even had like got up out the bed and done something, you know what I mean? It was like, I can't do this. I can't do this. So I knew like mentally, I was not in a good place. So I went, and it was a crazy experience. That was traumatic. They had the girls and the guys together. So there was a lot of stuff happening that shouldn't have been
Yeah,
happening.
that's not a good idea to me either. I feel like it should be no co-ed, because when you put guys and girls together, then you got the girls that are like attention seeking and look,
Yeah.
like there's just, you know, when I went to treatment and I was in a co-ed situation, my best friend was the gay guy. I wasn't trying to get with no boys. I was
Yeah.
trying to like just get out of there, you know what I'm saying? But then there was times where I was in my little hoe phase, and I had like 4 boyfriends by the time I left treatment. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. And see, and that was the thing, was like they tried to pair you, because so they had the girls on one side and the guys on the other, but you did everything. The hallway was like this. It was like a U shape. And then the main office is right in the front. And then they had like the room, like like the rec room, and then the little cafeteria and the TV room or whatever. So when I got there, I signed myself in voluntarily, did everything I needed to do. They took all of my stuff from me. They put it in the locker. They wouldn't even let me, my mom and them had bought me like dum-dums and gum and all of this stuff. They wouldn't let me have none of it. They locked it all up and was like, nope, you can't take it. And I'm like, you suckers? Like, what? Why? Like, I don't understand. And then the one thing they did let us have was cigarettes, though. And if you didn't have cigarettes, they provided cigarettes. It was Pall Malls, but still, you know, like that was cool. So, but they still kept them too. They would only give you one each time you go out or whatever. So they go through all your stuff, put everything you can't have in a locker, and gave me my bag of stuff, took me to this room. And for the first day, I was there in that room by myself. And it was, of course, I was anxious. I was everything. I was every emotion. I missed my baby. I'd never been away from my child that long. I missed my husband. It was very lonely, you know, but I was okay. And that night, they did vitals in the morning and in the evenings. And that night, they gave me a handful of medications. Don't know, couldn't tell you what none of them were. They didn't tell me what none of them were. Like, literally did not tell me what none of them were. But they had asked me like a slew of questions and like checked it off and gave me all these medicines accordingly. And it was a handful of stuff. And I remember they gave them to us at 9:30. By 9:45, I'm trying to walk to my room. My legs were so heavy. My head, I couldn't hold my head up. I was like this, trying to make it to my bed. And I just remember just falling like this. And I don't remember nothing else onto the bed. And just waking up the next day, do it again. And it was like literally a common. I had never been that messed up out in the streets. And they had me messed up, you know. And
Back in
there
the
was,
day, they used to do that. They used to give you trazodone, gabapentin,
yes,
Seroquel, and
that's what it
all these.
was. All of
Yeah,
that together combined. And I know there was gabapentin and Seroquel for sure. And there
yeah.
was one or two more things all at one time. And it was the craziest thing. Then you would wake up just feeling like blah.
Groggy and like you were drunk still from the night before, like a hangover.
Yes. And
Yeah.
if you didn't get up at this place, if you didn't get up at 6 o'clock for vitals, everybody would be punished and wouldn't be able to go outside and smoke.
Oh
So
yeah.
you made sure everybody got up, you know, you made sure of it. And so the first 2 days it was kind of like that. And then on the third night or the third day, they brought another woman in who was my age, and she was coming off heroin. And they do try to pair you with people that you can relate to some extent, and that's what they did. They paired her with me because she had a little baby boy. She was coming off heroin, and Opana is like a synthetic form of heroin. And there was just a lot of different like similarities like that. So they put us together, and bless this girl's heart, it was awful. She was coming off like very, very much coming off of heroin, and like it was like an exorcism. She was laying on that bed that night and just screaming in pain and agony and jumping up off that bed and tossing and turning, sweating. And I kept trying to talk to her to see if I could help her in some way. And she couldn't speak to me. And so finally, the next morning when it's still happening and I hadn't slept all night, I went up to the front desk and I was like, can I have some earplugs or something. So I tried that. Next night, same thing. Couldn't get her up for vitals. Everybody got punished for it. And they're telling me, like, that's your bunkie, man. Get her up. Get her out of that bed. Get her. And I was like, well, she just got here. Like, when I first got there, I slept a lot that first day. You know what I mean? Like, give her a minute. And that second day, she did get out of the bed for a few minutes, talked a little bit, but she was just really, really going through it. And I won't ever forget it. She was so itty bitty tiny. And hearing her scream all night and jumping on, like I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. And I asked them if, like I was bawling for her, and I couldn't help her. I couldn't sleep. It made me it just made me, I don't know, it just made me really emotional. And so I asked them if they could switch my rooms, and they said no, that they couldn't switch my room. I was just going to have to deal with it. And it was just starting to pile up. By day 3 of me being in there, my emotions were off the roof. This girl in this situation happening and having to deal with that, not sleeping, missing my baby, missing my family, not being away from them that long ever in my life. And I just remember calling my husband. You only got 15 minutes on the phone, and I'm crying. I'm like, I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here. So I went to go sign myself out, and I told him, I said, I'm ready to go. Like, I want to leave. And they said, well, okay, sign this form, just so you know. And it was a form letting me know that if they seem fit, they could hold me for up to 72 hours. And I was like, whoa, but I signed myself in. Like, I can't just sign myself out. And they said, well, if we think that you're a danger to yourself or that you need to be here, we can hold you up. It's for your protection and for others. And da, da, da. And I was like, okay. And panic starts setting in because I'm like, they're not going to let me out this bitch, And so they made me see this like therapist, counselor person. And I just remember I was very emotional. I was very honest about how I was feeling. I'd been very honest about how I was feeling in vitals, everything. And she evaluated all that. And she said, I think you need to be here. She's like, I know you missed your baby and I know you missed this, but I think you need to be here. And I was like, oh no, but I'm telling you, I'm ready to go. Like, I want to go. And she was not having it. So they held me for 72 hours or they held me for 48. And she said she was going to talk to me again after 2 days and see where I was. And I remember just crying and crying, crying. And some of the people that were in there had been in there, like that was like their 6th, 8th, 9th time being in there. So they knew how things worked in there. And I started asking around and I was like, how the fuck do I get out of here? I need to get out of here. I was panicking. Like at that point, it was like, screw everything. I got to get out of here. They're not letting me out. And they started telling me, like, when they ask you at vital time how you're feeling, you tell them you're fine. Tell them you're good. Don't say anything's hurting you, anything's like just a bunch of lying. Oh, I'm good. I'm fine. I'm great. Everything's great. And that's what I did. And I did that for like a whole day. And then the next day when the lady took me back in there, I put it on a fake act, acted like I was fine, feeling so much better. straight lied, so that they let me out of there. And they did, after 48 hours, let me out. And I was just I won't never forget it, because up until that third day, my head was really in the game. I really wanted to do better. And then when they wouldn't let me leave, panic set in, and I just wanted to get out of there. And it was
Yeah, I
nothing.
don't like that. I don't like, see, wherever the treatment centers that I've always been to, you could leave at your own volition. Like
Yeah.
nobody can hold you there against your will. You must have been at like a place where like a hospital kind of setting.
Well, it was like, it used to be a schoolhouse, actually, and they had transverted it into this facility. And it was but it was there were people, I there was a lot of things about it that was like, some people that were there needed to be in other facilities.
Like for
They had
mental health and stuff.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And it was very difficult, just like the way they had us all piled in there like that. And
Yeah.
it was like, I don't belong here, is how it felt.
Yeah.
And then them not letting me leave was just the cherry on top. So up until that point, I was really, really, my head was really in it. But then just went into panic mode and was trying to get out of there. And once I got out or whatever, all I could think of was using. Like, that was all I could think of. And of course, I wanted to see my family, and I wanted to love on my baby and get home. But that's all I thought about. And so I quickly relapsed from that situation, and it was awful. Like, but what I will say is, not that it makes it better, but I did stop using via IV. So I was like, oh well, I'm not doing that anymore, and I wasn't using as much.
Good.
So I
That's
was
good.
validating it in that way. And that went on for several months. And I found I was pregnant with my second child. And that is like what really got me into MAT. So at first, I was like scared to say anything, scared to tell my baby doctor, scared to anything. And I was just trying to do it on my own and like get
Right.
off. And I was really struggling with that. So after a couple of months, someone had told me, I wasn't being honest with my baby doctor, so I'm sure they would have told me if I had been. But some somebody told me that, if you try to come off of this stuff cold turkey, it can kill your child. And I
Yeah,
was like,
absolutely.
wait, what? I was like, so that scared me, because I was going days where I wouldn't do anything at all. And then I would feel really, really bad and do something. I was trying not to, but then I would.
Right.
And I felt so horrible about myself, because I knew this baby was in me, and that this living being was inside of me. And it's like, I got to do right by this little baby. And so after a couple of months, I finally did break down and go to a maintenance medication facility. And I won't never forget it. It was January 2016. And it changed my life. It really changed my life. Um, and then I stayed at that facility for, oh, over 3 years, and they had like counseling and stuff in there too, and would help me with other resources if I needed other kinds of resources, anything I needed help with. They were just so amazing. And it was like one of those situations where you had to kind of build your trust up with the facility. So you had to go every day for so long. And then, which
Yeah.
really helped me in the beginning, because I needed that. I needed that structure, and I needed that keeping me in check and that accountability, because I I wasn't holding myself accountable, and I wasn't able to give myself that structure. So they really helped me put those steps and implement those steps into place. And so I was there for 2 years. And once I was stable and doing really good, I ended up going to a monthly facility, and stop going there because it was starting to get to like, okay, like this is a lot of hassle, you know. So I did that, and it was a really good experience for me. The hardest, there was one time where I relapsed once I did get in there or into a facility, but it was just one, that was my one slip up, and that was it. And I was quickly back on track. And then once I started going to the monthly facility, they had me. The only thing though is I was on the highest milligram of Subutex you could be on for 3 years, and or right at 3 years. And they weren't like weaning me off of it or anything, but like I was so ready and wanted to come off of it and wanted to just be able to live life without being on it. And but they were like, in the beginning, after I had my daughter, they were like, well, you need to wait because you just had a baby. That's a lot on you. You don't need to do that yet. And then after like 6 months or so, they started weaning me down, and they did something called, we tried it the regular way, and mentally it was just, I would always stop. I would always stop at like 16 and not want to go down anymore.
Mhm.
And so they gave me an option for a blind taper, which really worked really good for me because I didn't know how much they were taking.
I love blind tapering. I think it's the best way to go.
Yeah, me too, because it's like not knowing really helped me. It really helped
Yeah.
me a lot. And I was on like 4 milligrams for the longest time and didn't know that. And then got down to 2 milligrams. When I got down to 2 milligrams, that's when they told me. They weren't telling me the whole time where I was at. But when I got down to 2 milligrams, they let me know. And I was so proud of myself because I was like, oh my God, I had tried to do that for a year and I
Yeah.
kept not being able to do it. And then I was finally able to do it. So a blind taper really worked amazingly for me. And as of now, and my husband, shortly after I started going, my husband went like literally a couple months after. So that was really, really good. And we've been in our recovery together the whole time. He's not had any relapse, which I'm really proud of him. And that's been such a good thing for me too, because it helps to hold you accountable. Seeing him do good makes me want to do good, type of thing. And he's always just been so much more, I don't even know if it's more strong-willed. It's just, I don't know. I always struggled with things more than he did mentally. Um, so seeing him do good really helped me. And then just being able to do that together. And then, like I said, we've got almost 8 years under our belt now where we have not had any substances. I don't smoke cannabis anymore. I stopped smoking when I started going to the MAT place. I had to stop smoking because of that. That it's not legal where I'm at, so they wouldn't let us, or you couldn't have it in your system. And I was willing to put it down so that I could. But yeah, and things have been good. What I will say is last year I did, and this is why the Jessica Kent stuff really bothered me, because last year there was a lot of different things that had happened in my life. And when I say I quit everything, I mean everything. I stopped drinking, not even recreationally. I didn't smoke cannabis, like nothing. And I've done so good and I've been so proud of myself. But last year I started drinking recreationally again a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and going just when I was out with my friends, girlfriends, which is very seldom. I got 3 kids now. And so
Yeah.
it wasn't like that much, but I was. And then I was starting to buy, it went from drinking with the girls to buying wine to bring home to going through a bottle a week. And thankfully, I caught it quickly, because it's like I said, it started off with one bottle that would last me a whole week, and then I was down in a whole bottle in a day.
That's how quickly it goes. And that's why it's so important for us to not sit here and like, it's like not okay. Like if we're in recovery and we're out like getting fucking drunk and stuff, like that's dangerous.
Oh yeah.
It's dangerous to share that with people online and give them an idea like it's not that big of a deal, because it can be a huge deal for somebody else. You know?
And the craziest part about it, not that Jessica has anything, but her video, that when that happened, I was going through it almost simultaneously.
Yeah.
So
and it's like, oh, well, she's doing it, so it's not that bad.
Yeah, and it was crazy because when she made her first video, I hadn't shared I hadn't nothing. I was dealing with this very much secretly. My husband didn't even know I was struggling like that. Like he knew I would drink a glass of wine when I made supper, but he didn't know. Yeah. And I watched Jessica's video, and that's kind of what made me realize like, oh my God, like you're struggling, girl. You know what I mean? And then, like I said, there was one day where I went through a whole bottle of wine before supper time, and I was blitzed by the time my husband got home from work, and I just felt like shit about myself. I felt so awful that I had, because I don't drink around my kids. I always would like, and it just got to the point where I was drinking, even though it's just wine, I was drinking it in front of the kids and drinking a whole bottle with all three of my kids there. And it's like, I'm really hard on myself. So I kicked myself in the ass for it. And so, but Jessica had brought something up about, because the one thing I really kicked myself in the ass for is it's like, wow, you've done all this work and you just relapsed. You just like lost it all, and I made myself believe that kind of in my head. It's like, you've done all of this and now you're back to square one. Like you're going to have to start over and all of this stuff. And then the thought too of like, alcohol is very much normalized. It's legal.
Yeah.
And that's difficult because I didn't even know I had an issue with it until I started really breaking it down and looking at it and just talking it out like this with people, realizing that I have always turned to alcohol as a crutch when I wasn't using other stuff.
Right.
No, it wasn't necessarily my drug of choice, but I always turned to it when I was trying to come off something else.
Right.
And so it was a problem for me. And I've just had to be able to accept, for me personally, that I have an addictive personality. And that's anything, with sugar. I mean, oh my God, I can throw down on some cake, on some donuts,
Yeah, for sure. And listen, when you have a relapse, it's not so much that you lose your time. It's more, well, the way I look at it is that I've gained experience. Now I know here's another notch on my list of things I can't do.
Yeah.
So I try to look at it as me learning more about myself. You know what I'm saying? Instead of saying, shit, I got to start my time all over again. Fuck that, dude. I don't even think about that part. I don't even, honestly, if somebody has a little slip like that or a lapse like that, I don't pressure them to start their time over. What I believe they should do is evaluate their lapse, look at it, learn from it, and gain experience from it. You know what I'm saying? So that way they can go back and say, okay, I've learned now that it's not healthy for me to drink wine, and because it just takes me to tequila, and then it takes me to this, and then I end up doing this. So you know what I'm saying? So as long as you learn from that experience, that's good. That's healthy.
Absolutely. And that was the thing is I was, because of all the time I had in recovery, I got a little comfortable, one.
Yeah.
And two, I had a lot of experience with boundaries, things that I never had before, all these different things. So I knew the warning signs, I knew the red flags, and I caught it quickly. And I was proud of myself for that because, before I wouldn't have been able to stop at a drink or whatever, but I was able to stop myself and step back and say, okay, girl, you can't be doing this, and the thing that I've had to learn to accept, and this is just me, I know everybody's journey is different, but for me, I can't drink. I can't drink. Because I may be able to have a drink tonight, but it can also trigger something to make me want to drink every week because I had one drink last night. Well, I can have one drink next week. My brain just doesn't work like some people, and that was kind of hard to like accept too, because like I said, it's so normalized. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe one day I'll be able to go have a drink, with my friends out and about. But for me, that's not possible. And I had to be able to accept that. I really did. That was something I had to kind of come to terms with, because when I was first talking it out with myself, I was like, well, yeah, if I go out with the girls every once in a while, that is no big deal. But it is for me. It's literally a matter of going backwards for me, because it happened so quick. And that is all I needed to see like, I can't drink. And that's just me. And, I can't dwell on, well, hopefully one day I can, I can't. I can't do that. I got to stay rooted in now. And right now, I cannot do it.
You'll drive yourself crazy thinking about someday. I mean,
yes.
If I focused on maybe one day I'll be able to shoot meth like everybody else can. I mean, like, what? Come on now, girl. Like, why do I feel like I need to take these substances into my body to make me have fun? Why can't I just be me and people have fun being with me sober?
See, that's my goal. That's what I'm working towards, is I want to accept me for who I am sober, love me sober, be able to work through my emotions and have boundaries and have healthy relationships sober, and love myself sober, because that's something I was never able to do before. And those, like, anything that impairs that isn't helping me towards that goal. So that's a big motivator for me, is like, I've came a long way. I hated myself. I did. I hated myself. And, of course, I still have little self things here and there, but my recovery, I've learned to love myself and really show myself love, something I never did before, what I will say, and you made a video, that's basically my story, but you made a video a few weeks back about loving someone, like being an addict and loving someone like being on both sides of addiction.
Yeah.
And that's something I'm currently going through and struggling with now, with my mom. And she recently had a pretty severe relapse. And I had never been on this side of it, really. Like I said, my mama kind of always, not like daily, but she would use, and I just never knew. But it's now gotten to this point where it is very much a known thing, and it's very much affecting her life and all of her loved ones, and she's doing a lot of the same things I've done, things that she would have never done before. She's lost a lot of weight. She doesn't there's just so many things, and it's been hard to navigate through, because I know as an addict myself that that's not her in a lot of ways. It's not, it's just part of addiction. It's just a part of it. And I'm trying to help her, you know what I mean? Like, in every way I can without enabling her, but being supportive and understanding and not judgmental, and like letting her know, like, I love her and I understand and I'm here to, if she needs me. But it's hard to navigate through that. And I think when you've been on both sides, it's hard no matter what. So I'm not like comparing.
The hardest thing I've ever done is love somebody that has an addiction.
Yeah.
Listen to me. I would go back to my active addiction any day, but seeing my husband relapse and going through that, it was it was devastating. It was painful. If my mom was an addict and she relapsed, I can't explain. It's like it consumes your whole life.
It does.
It's so hard.
And it affects your mental health too, in a lot of ways. And that's been something like that I'm currently dealing with, and having to put boundaries in place to make sure I'm staying in a good place and not putting myself in a bad spot, while also still trying to be supportive and loving and everything I need to be for her. But unfortunately, she's in a place of denial right now, really bad, and not being honest with herself or me.
Yeah.
So it's difficult, and I just pray that she'll get there, and she knows, she knows I know. That's the thing, is she knows I know, but she's still in that denial, and I just let her know and remind her that I'm
And
always here
there's
and I love
nothing
her.
you can do when they're doing that, when they're denying and
Oh
they're
yeah.
oh, I don't have a problem. Who, me? What are you talking about? Like, it's like you might as well just say, okay, mom, I love you.
Yep.
Check back in with me in a couple of days, or let me know how you're
It's
doing, because they
hard.
will drive you insane.
Yeah, and part of when it's someone you're really close to like that too, because it's like, it's hard when it's a friend or anything, but when it's someone you're really close to like that is like, my mama's my best friend, is
Mm-hmm.
my best friend. She is my best friend. And the distance that this is, like, I've not talked to her in over like a while. And until like we were seeing each other on a daily basis, a weekly basis, talking every day, texting every day. And now it's very short, very short. I don't hear from her as much as I was, and I know where she's at. I know what she's doing, and she knows I know, even though I get it too from her perspective because she's my mother. So she don't want to disappoint me. She doesn't want me to feel, any type of way. So she don't want to tell me these things. And I get that because that's how I felt, when I was in active addiction. I didn't want to tell my mom. I didn't want to disappoint her. So I know that plays a big part in it. But I keep trying to tell her, like, it's okay. I know, and I love you, and I don't judge you, but it doesn't matter. Like, you just got to be able to get there for yourself, I guess. And it doesn't matter. You can say all the right things, but until they're ready, there's just nothing you can really do about it.
The best thing I did for my husband was I fell back. I had to stop doing what I was doing and fell back and let him kind of like, I just let my husband fall on his face, basically, because I kept trying to save him from his consequences. I kept doing things like calling into his job for him, or if, like, I could see, like, probably with your mom or something, like, what if she fell behind on rent and you might pay rent for her 1 month, or if she, just those little things that you think you're helping because you're like, I don't want nothing bad to happen to her. Oh, she's out of gas. She broke down on the side of the road. Let me go put some gas in her tank. Anything like that.
We've done that. We've done that many. That's what I was sitting here thinking of. There's been many times I've put gas in her tank because she's out of gas on the side of the road. She came, like, the last few times I've seen her, that's the only reason I've seen her, is because she needed gas money. and I told my husband, I was like, it's so hard because I know it's enabling. It is, but it's so hard because I don't want her to be on the side of the road. So I told him, I was like, we can't do it no more. We just can't. And it's hard. It's hard. It's been really hard.
I know. Believe me, I know. And you know what? And you'll just take time, and eventually you'll just get to a point where you work your way up. Like, I could tell you to stop doing that, but you got to work on your own time to get to a point where you're going to say, Mom, I love you, but I can't keep doing this. Like, because what's happening is she's never going to learn that, hey, I got to make sure that I keep gas in my car or else I'm going to run out. And so when she starts experiencing being on the side of the road and having to walk the rest of the way home, that's going to make her remember, I don't want to run out next time. You know what I mean?
I remember that shit. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I will say, she's not asked me a whole bunch, but another thing, she has asked a couple of times. And another thing that she's gotten real good at is manipulation. And like, knowing that I know something and, like, straight bold-faced lie to me just to get her way about something.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest part, I think, is just that, not being able to trust the one person you've never not trusted. And it's hard. It's hard to stay rooted in the reality of, this isn't her. This is just the addiction.
Right.
And not take it personal. It's hard to take it personal. And, I'm, like I said, I'm the only child that she has, and I'm grown and she has grandchildren. that are her whole life. So it's really hard, but I always have to remind myself, I know I've been there and I know, and it's just hard to stay there in the middle of knowing and understanding and supporting and loving and not taking it personal. And it's, you know what I mean? Because it
I
does.
know what you mean.
It hurts
It
real
has
bad.
nothing to do with you. Absolutely nothing to do with you. And I understand because I was the same way. I kept thinking, you're thinking this. Does she not love me? Does she not love her grandbabies enough to want to quit using? If she did, she would stop using drugs. That's how I felt about my husband. He must not love me. He must not really want to be with me. He must not want to take care of our son. That's why he was doing this. And that's what you're thinking. But that has nothing to do with it. She
Yeah.
loves those grandbabies. She loves you, obviously. I mean, she was carrying you around with her when she was when you were a little baby and y'all were staying in a car. That's how much she loved you, is that she didn't want to get you taken away,
Oh yeah. Oh
And
yeah. And
so
she's
it's
always
just a
been a good.
damn addiction.
Yeah, and it sucks. And I know she's gotta, because I've even thought about the whole like getting them committed. Like we've talked about, me and my husband's talked about like, oh, what you got to go through and all this stuff. But we tried to do that with his brother, and it just does come back down to the fact that you can do it all. You can spend all the money, you can spend all the time, but if that person is not ready, it's not going to make any difference. And then you're just going to be out of money and time and
Yeah.
still in the same predicament. And I know people feel differently about it, but it's just like, I know that she has to get there and want it herself. And I'm a firm believer that addiction is a disease. It's a part of mental health illness.
Yeah, me too.
And I think that if she would go to a psychiatrist and start working on those things, it would drastically help so much. So that's what I'm working on. I'm trying to get her talked into going and talking to somebody, because I think that would be a really good, and MAT. I'm trying to get her into an MAT thing, but she's got to do it. I'm just trying to help her,
That would be the best thing she could do. Get into MAT and get into therapy.
Yeah.
Tell her, say, going into medication assisted treatment, like they're going to help her to be comfortable. That she's not going to, that would be the best thing. And she can
And she
still,
knows it too, because she was in an MAT thing for like 4 or 5 years, did amazing.
yeah.
And things happen in her life, different things, and she quit going. And there's no, I've told her 1,000 times, there's no shame in that. Like, just go back. You just do it again. They're used to it. You know how many times I like messed up while I was in there? Not drug tests, but just different things. Bottle recalls, didn't show up, didn't make it there before the doors closed. And they're ready for that. You know what I mean? Most of those facilities are prepared and know they're not going to kick you out. They're not going to whatever. They're there to help. And that's what I told her. I was like, nobody's judging you but you. If
she goes back, they're going to be proud of her. They're going to be excited to see her.
Oh yeah, every time, it did not matter. They were always so happy to see me come back in. You know what I mean? Like, the first time I tried to go to a monthly facility, I really screwed up, and then ended up, because I was so used to that day to day, it was a lot of responsibility at once, and I screwed up.
Yeah.
And I ended up going back to that place that was a day-to-day situation, and they were so happy to see me. Like, they were so happy to see me back in there. And I told them, I said, I tried the monthly thing. It didn't work for me. I'm not ready yet, And it takes time, but I think finding a good facility, because I know not all facilities are the same, but
yeah,
we were lucky in that aspect around here, to where we do have a really good facility where there's people that work there. A lot of them have experience with addiction, so that kind of helps too, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's what I'm currently going through. And I will say, like, I'm doing good, but this has been the hardest thing mentally, and keeping my recovery in the forefront, and just because the thoughts have been there. And I've had to talk to my own sponsor, and there's been moments where I've had to like just back away from her, because it has affected my recovery. And I know she's not intentionally doing none of it. It's not her fault, but it's just me, and something that I'm struggling with. So that's the hardest part, is just keeping those boundaries in check to where I'm not putting myself in a bad place to try to help her, you know. But yeah, I guess
that's so amazing, girl.
Thank you.
You told your story really good. I'm actually quite impressed, if you want to know the truth. You did really, really good. You got me very emotional on a couple of parts of it too, which is I don't really get emotional when I have guests on, but you're talking about your dad, man. Damn. That really teared.
Oh, and there's so much that I left out too. Because how long has it been?
Like 2 hours? You have been my longest speaking guest so far.
That does not surprise me. That does not surprise me.
That's good. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. Well, I asked every guest that comes on, I ask them one question before they leave. So I want to ask you this question. So I want you to think about the people that are in the audience that are on the other side of the world or wherever they're at, and they're watching this video right now, and they're in their active addiction. They're getting high, but they don't want to be like that anymore. They want to change. What would you say to the person on the other end of the screen that's struggling right now and they're afraid to reach out for help?
And they're afraid to reach out for help. I would say if you have the want for better, then there's no reason to be afraid, because the worst thing that's going to happen is that you relapse, and you can always fix that. You can always start, take, like they say, one day at a time, but you won't know until you try it, until you actually try to see how it works. And who knows, it may just work for you. And again, the worst thing is a relapse, which you can fix the very next day. Wake up, do it again. Show yourself some grace. Don't think too much into it. Don't overthink it, because that's, I think, a big thing as addicts too, is we already have so much mental stuff on us that people do not even realize. We've already said all the horrible stuff to ourselves. We do it on a daily, and that's a hard habit to break. So show yourself some grace and just do it. And yeah, that's what I would say. Just don't be so hard on yourself, and just do it.
I agree. Just do it. I really do agree. This is what I want you to do. So I'm going to post this video. I got to change the title to Cassie, but I already changed the thumbnail. Everybody, so it's Cassie, not Cassandra. I'm sorry I called you that. I just automatically assumed. But I told everybody Cassie when we started the video. And what I want you to do, will you send me the links to your YouTube channel and all the places that you want people to follow you? Because I'm going to put it in the description box and in the comment section, pinned in the comment section of this video. And I'm so grateful that you came on. And I would love to do another video in a couple of months where you come on and you tell us about maybe kind of give us an update on how your mom is doing.
I would love that. Yeah, I would love that. I definitely will. And yeah, I'll send you that stuff. And maybe I'll message you behind the scenes, but I was actually going to see if you wanted to come over on my second channel to talk about some stuff too. So
I will. I'm always game.
But thank y'all. Thank you, Nicole. I really appreciate it. I was so nervous, but I was like, I've watched these. I've been watching you, adore you. And I was like, okay, I know her being there is going to make it so much easier, because it can be kind of hard to know where to start and to navigate through stuff.
You did amazing. You did phenomenal. Really, you did a great job. You seem like you are a natural at storytelling, at telling your story. So you did a good job.
I think it comes naturally after a while. I remember the first time I turned the camera on, I was so nervous, but now it's like second nature.
Yeah, I love talking on here.
Me too. I do too. And thank everybody in chat too. I'm sorry, I'm trying to check my phone and check because I can't see it on this end. But thank y'all so much for being here and for supporting me. I really appreciate it. I've seen a couple of messages going by saying stuff, so I'll try to catch up with the replay.
Thank you so much, girl. I love you. Okay, I'm gonna take you off here because Nate and Neil just got home, and I'm gonna go get Nate something to eat. But I'm gonna message you on Instagram and get all your links. Okay.
All right. Good night, y'all.
Bye, baby. Okay, you guys. I got emotional during her story time, and y'all know I'm an emotional person, but damn, that really got me emotional talking about her dad and everything. She did a really freaking good job sharing her story. I hope a lot of you guys could relate to it. I could relate to a lot of her story, especially when she got into talking about, her second baby and having to get on MAT. And she's a great example, you guys, of like, if you're somebody out there who's pregnant and you're using drugs right now, I'm so glad she talked about that. There's nothing to be ashamed of. If you need to get help, if you are on drugs and you are pregnant, reach out. Do not be ashamed. Okay. You can message me. I won't tell a soul, and I'll help you get treatment. So that way you and your baby are safe. Okay. That's like a really big thing that I like talking about on my channel is addiction and pregnancy, because I didn't get help and I could have lost my son. And so I don't want any of you guys, I don't want nobody to do what I did. I don't want people to use drugs while they're pregnant, And so if you're somebody out there and you're a woman and you're struggling with addiction and you're pregnant, there's nothing to be ashamed of. It's really not hard at all to get the help. I can hook you up and you will be, good to go. You know what I'm saying? So that really was really important to me. I'm so glad that she talked about that in the video. And basically, I hope by hearing everybody's stories that we bring on, that you guys hear these stories. And if you haven't experienced something like this, that you will learn from our experiences so you don't make the same mistakes. And if you have already made the same mistakes we have, I hope by hearing our stories, it will help you feel not so alone. I hope it'll make you realize that we all have been through some shit, and there's nothing to be ashamed of. That's what we're all here for, is to help each other by sharing our stories, But I'm a mess emotionally today. I love you guys, and I hope you guys enjoyed Cassie's story. I'm going to get this video up and get her links so that way you guys can find her. And yeah, I love you guys. Okay, and I'll see y'all tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday. So tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, we will be live. Hold on, let me put the link in the chat. I will be live with my patrons. So if you're a patron of mine or you want to become one, okay, here is my Patreon link. It's only $2. And it's only $2 to join. If you want to do recovery coaching, that's $45 a month. But the regular tier is just $2. You join, and we go live every Friday at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time together. Okay. So if you want to join, come on with it. There's the link in the chat. I love you guys, and I'm going to get this video up and go get this boy fed. Okay. All right.